cool. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Annie, and I'm the founder of IRLart, which is a local arts collective here in Denver, Colorado. I'm tuning in from our brick and mortar space down in the Rhino Arts District. And yeah, so we have been doing a lot of really cool stuff in the NFT space. So this is going to be an introduction to Web3, NFTs, and the Metaverse. And just a little background on what we've done in NFTs is in 2019, we built the gallery at ETH Denver, but then we were asked later in 2019 to actually curate for 2020. And so I was teamed up with Jessica Angel, who's another art steward at ETH Denver, and she became my mentor. And I just went down the rabbit hole of learning all about NFTs. And I have been into crypto and into other digital collectibles before NFTs really had an art focus. But really in 2019 was when I minted some of my first NFTs to really understand the whole process, right? So that then I could really start wrapping my head around creating an auction for ETH Denver. And so you can find my work on Super Rare, on OpenSea, and on Unique One. And I'll just kick it off. So, Web3 is kind of this umbrella term that basically is trying to explain that we're creating a new internet. And that new internet is allowing users to own their own data. So NFTs and Web3 metaverses are really incredible use cases for that data ownership, right? So instead of posting your artwork or whatever it may be on social media, and that data is ultimately owned by, Facebook or Instagram, NFTs are allowing users to control their own data. And there's all sorts of more levels to that, but we'll really be talking about NFTs and the metaverse and what that means. And so, and I'll get into a bit of the democratization too. So to start off, just wanted to lay out a lot of incredible platforms to make NFTs on or create NFTs. And there's two distinctions. So there's open platforms that don't require an application process to be approved. So you can just, create a MetaMask wallet, which I always explain kind of like it's like your PayPal for crypto. And so you set up your MetaMask and you could just sync it to, Unique One, OpenSea, Rarible, and just create an NFT. There's no application process. There's no curation, which, for me, I think the downside of that is that you have to really market yourself and, whatever it may be that you're doing. There are, all of these platforms do showcases and editorials, but you often have to, hey Yule, there's someone, I don't know if they're, we had some people joining, so, to get back to what I was saying, so basically the downside is that you have to do your own marketing, whereas with the closed platforms at the bottom, so Foundation, Doing Good, Super Rare, Known Origin, Maker's Place, Async, I think, it is a rigorous process to get accepted into these platforms, and you have to have pretty strong portfolios. But, if you are an established artist, I always really recommend that you try to get approved onto these platforms, because they just have really great built-in collectors, and they do a lot of editorials. They'll share your work on social media. And there's just this kind of like vote of approval that, if you're selling artwork on those platforms, it kind of lends itself to be more successful. You don't have to rely so heavily on your own marketing. You just get that exposure to an audience of people that really are looking towards these platforms as being a good curated selection. And so I put some other notes beside the platforms themselves, so kind of distinguishing between the platforms if they're community owned and governed, and like Unique One has multiple platforms for various niches. So they have like a photography platform and various, kind of niches. So it's pretty cool. OpenSea has some free options for minting, which is really cool. And then I listed Hicknook, which is a really neat platform, but it's on Tezos network. So everyone other than that one are all on Ethereum, or they utilize Polygon. So, there's a lot of really good literature out there. If you just Google how to add Polygon to your MetaMask, or and then switching between, because for the last several years Ethereum's gas fees have been really expensive. So the gas is, every time you mint a piece, you're essentially creating a token on the network, and so to do that requires a fee, and it's been really expensive. So a lot of people have gone on to use like Hicknook, because Tezos is a lot cheaper, and same with Polygon. But as of 2 days ago, the Ethereum network merged, and which ultimately means that gas fees are going to be a lot cheaper now. And so I really like Ethereum just in general. That's what I mostly use, and so a lot of our focus is going to be on Ethereum-based platforms. But there are some really cool other networks that worth exploring. I think the Tezos community has an incredible supportive community, but they're two separate networks. So. And yeah, just a program comparison, really a platform comparison here. So on the left, it's Super Rare, OpenSea, Known Origin, and Rarible. And like I was saying, between whether it's open or curated, user owned, and they all have royalties. So that's one of the the most compelling thing about NFTs is that, for instance, with me on Super Rare, I think I have 30 something pieces on there, but I've sold them all. But when they get bought again on the secondary market, right? So say I sold it once, but then someone buys it from who owns it now, I get 10% every time it sells automatically. And so I think that that's really incredible, because with the traditional art market, it's really difficult to track artworks after they've sold, or it's not really even a standard to give the artist anything after it's sold. So I think that that's a really powerful way that one artist can track their work and see who owns it, see where it's at, but they get rewarded every single time it does sell. So I think that's a really powerful thing, that the artist community came together when developers were working on NFTs in the early days and really advocated for this kind of tooling. So you can very much see a lot of incredible tooling that in the way NFTs are work that was very informed by artists. And so, I'm also an artist, but an art curator and organizer. So I pointed out some gallery tools, the platforms that have gallery and curation tools, and Doing Good was the platform that I used for ETH Denver last year, and I really like it for a lot of reasons. So if you are looking to do some kind of group show or an auction, and you have multiple artists that you're wanting to bring together, I really recommend Doing Good. Super Rare is a bit more of a process to get involved because it is a curated platform. So, but they do, once you do have a presence on there, then they also have gallery and curation tools. And with OpenSea, Known Origin, and Rarible, they're more so better suited for either one of one, so an original piece, or editions, which editions I kind of think about like prints. So you can, mint one piece of artwork and say there's 20 of them or 100 of them. And people would just get, 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20. And that's what I think OpenSea, Known Origin, and Rarible are best for. And as well as then these collections. So I'm put on there, OpenSea and Rarible have like this collection feature. So that's more so when you see things like Bored Ape Yacht Club or CryptoPunks, these big generative projects, that's what you would call a collection. And so it's great for launching a collection on that would be 1,000 pieces or 10,000 pieces. Most people use OpenSea, I think, but Raribles also has that tooling. And then they all have split royalties. It wasn't a thing at the beginning, so the whole NFT space is always evolving, and there's always more upgrades and tools, but as of right now, almost all the platforms do split royalties. So basically, when you're minting the NFT, say you have a collaborator and you want to build in some kind of split payment and a split royalty with them, that's all possible, which is a great tool too. So in the future, if it sells, it's just automatically getting those royalties to the right people. So yeah, and then this is what I mainly want to talk about, because I think I think a lot of people look at NFTs and they think, oh, it's just digital art, or they don't really see what all is possible. And it's, for me, creatively, I've found so much inspiration in discovering what all people are using NFTs for. And so I think it's an important aspect to really look at when you're trying to decide what you want to do, because I think that the more creatively you're using the technology, potentially could be more successful. And I think, I look at NFTs a lot as like its own medium. And so I think that seeing what other people have done with it can really help, spark the imagination. So, utility is how this is often referred to. And, a few things are access and experiences. Then I'll go into dynamic NFTs and generative art. But one thing that I I didn't include, but I think is one of the most interesting things that you can do with NFTs is allow people to vote on certain topics. So we've been using NFTs internally with our team of 8 people to vote when we have various things come up. And I think that that's a really interesting way to think about NFTs as this, way to have votes in an organization, and a lot of organizations are using those. So, and I have a whole nother talk on that you can find on my YouTube that I did with Vertical Crypto Art, which is an epic arts organization supporting crypto artists. So NFTs really can be anything. The sky's the limit. So, people are releasing albums and music videos, poems, time lapses, clothes for your avatar. You can do a fundraiser. It can be proof that you attended something like a ticket stub. It can be a URL. It can be a piece of land in a user-owned game. And so, really, and I'll show some of my favorite examples of how people are really utilizing this technology. But, in just such a short time, in the last, I would say really 5 years, but maybe even shorter window of time, but a lot of lives have been changed, especially for digital artists. But I do want to really show how people are using NFTs in all sorts of ways, but especially digital artists, there wasn't, unless you made prints of your artwork, there's not really a way to sell your art as your art. And so that, for me as a digital artist, was probably the most novel thing when I started creating NFTs, was the idea of being able to keep my digital art digitally native. It felt like it just made sense to sell my art in this way. And so going forward, so talking about access and experiences is one of the many ways you can use NFTs. And on the left, I have a picture of an art party or a paint party that this really awesome artist, Phillips, hosts. And he does them in different cities. But basically, everyone who bought any of his art pieces, so I would have to look up, but say he has, 50 art pieces he sold as NFTs. All of those, he decided to turn into this special access ticket. So it's like if you hold one of his NFTs, you can go to these really cool paint parties that he hosts, and you get to meet him, get to put on a paint suit and have all this fun. And I just thought that is a really interesting way to think about the possibilities, because again, with like normal art, I've made a lot of tangible art myself. I have no idea where it's at, who owns it, if they've resold it, And what's so cool is you can, at any given time, whoever owns your NFTs, you can take a snapshot of that and send them an invitation, or there's just this really, it just opens up a lot more possibilities for doing cool things like this to reward your collectors and say, hey, thanks so much for buying my art. Now your art is a ticket, is a ticket to this event. So, and then this, on the right, I've got Pool Suite, which I think is such a cool project. And they've been doing these executive member cards, and it grants you access to all sorts of events and collectibles, and gives you voting power for, voting on projects that their community is working on. And and kind of on the fundraising tip too, I think that projects like what they're doing is so interesting, because they're ultimately, creating this way for people to get involved, people to support them, and then it's also access to what they're ultimately co-creating. So it's breaking down a lot of like more traditional barriers, I think, for creating experiences and co-creating. So definitely recommend checking out both Fawocious and Pool Suite as just interesting ways to think about access and experiences with NFTs, because I think that these are both really great examples of things that you can do and not be a digital artist too, right? So kind of broadening out what's possible. And so I wanted to talk a bit, and this is a bit more technical, but dynamic NFTs it's really powerful and it's really interesting. So Async Art, that's at the bottom, is one of the closed platforms, so you do have to apply. But I think that they're just one of the most interesting NFT platforms that exist because of how they are allowing artists to really create these deep interactive narratives with the work. So on the left is a little snippet, it's not the full image, of the First Supper, which was actually 12 different artists, and they all created one of the characters out of the First Supper. But what was so interesting about this was that each one of the artists' work that they created for this art piece was its own layer. So you could buy just that layer or bid on just that layer. But then as the owner of that piece, it also unlocks the ability to interact with it. So say change the hair color, or change the clothing on it, and it's up to the artist to create those parameters. But I think it's just so brilliant in that 12 plus artists could come together and create a work of art together in this way, but all be honored individually for their contribution, but then also create this interactive layer where the patrons who buy this work can actually augment the work if they own it. And so Async is really pushing a lot of really interesting boundaries. And then on the right is Micah Johnson, who's a former professional baseball player, and he did this really moving artwork that you see with the astronaut on one side and the young black man on the one side, the boy. And ultimately what happens with this piece is Micah interviewed two young brothers and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they said astronauts, and they're also foster children. And so he made this work of art, so every year on the children's birthday, they get a little bit closer to the door, and on their 18th birthday they'll go through the door and become the astronaut. But every year on their birthday, it's also a call to action to donate Bitcoin to two wallets that will go to the brothers when they turn 18. And I would have to look, I'm sure it's gone up, but at one point each wallet was over $1 million. And so, and I mean, this piece brought me to tears when I saw it, and I think that it just shows how deep of a narrative and also a call to action and ways that we can really leverage this technology and our own creativity to tell really powerful stories, and also to do profound, high impact work. And so I always try to point out these two because they're so different too, right? The First Supper, Micah Johnson, totally different artists and styles, but both on Async and both demonstrating this idea of dynamic NFTs, which ultimately how it works for people who are interested to investigate this further is that, there's these data oracles, and, you know, you can basically link the NFT to a data oracle, and, for something like the First Supper, it's maybe linked to, several dozen, like the temperature or number of votes of a political candidate, various things, right? You can pull data from these oracles, and then you update the metadata on the piece, and then ultimately it will sync to that oracle data. And so Async has really streamlined that process, and they also work with artists to customize their work. So they'll help, workshop your concept and your idea, and then help really make it happen. But for people who are interested in seeing what all is possible, I recommend looking into Chainlink. It's a free open source technology where you can harness oracles to create these more sophisticated dynamic NFTs. And yeah, I know and for some people you're probably completely lost in the sauce, but I just recommend looking at Async Art. For me, being a visual person, it always helps to see the artwork, and just to see what people are doing with it has been so inspiring and helps me visually understand what's possible. And so it's just such an incredible website. They do a lot of really great editorials that you can read, and definitely look for those two pieces because they're just phenomenal, and both have really good articles written about them. And so I wanted to talk about generative NFTs. So a bit different than dynamic, but so, everyone's probably seen, the 10,000 PFP projects, which PFP stands for profile picture. So like Bored Ape and CryptoPunks, everyone uses the NFT as their profile picture, right? And ultimately the way that those are made is that you take, roughly 50 characteristics, kind of run them through this generator, and they create a collection of all these different pieces that have slightly different attributes. And, I think it's really interesting, and there's been a lot of success with doing projects like that, certainly. But I find these generative NFTs to be similar, but a bit, for me personally, a bit more interesting. So it's ultimately powered by AI, and you go and mint the artwork. And this artist, Tyler Hobbs, did this collection of fidenzas, and it's basically taking in data like what color palettes work the best, and then he puts in different, like the spiral, the line thickness. And when you mint out of that collection, right, so you want to get one of the pieces, you're actually going to be creating a new artwork based off of that AI data. And so I think that there's something really interesting about generative artworks, and there's a whole NFT platform dedicated to generative artworks where you can learn more about those at artblocks.io. And yeah, I think that there's just a lot that can be explored there, right? So it's similar to dynamic NFTs, but there's just a lot of really powerful and different technology to really harness. And so I wanted to kind of lay three really powerful ones out there, and maybe one of those will resonate, and I encourage you to go down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of incredible projects out there worth checking out, and if I have some more time at the end, I'll show some more, or we can go to Tyler Hobbs's website and really, he has a beautiful statement on his website where he explains this process, and I think it's really interesting. So, yeah, so now we can talk about the metaverse a bit. Unless there's any questions about all of the crazy NFT stuff I just dumped out.
Yeah, what's your favorite NFT project?
What's my favorite NFT project? Probably Botto. I really think Botto's a fascinating project that it's worth mentioning too. So I didn't really include much about kind of the democratization of art, but Botto is a really great example of democratization of art. So every artist that was on Super Rare qualified to claim tokens from the Botto project. And what those tokens do, and it's just BOTTO, Botto, and it allows you to vote on AI artwork that's being generated from an AI that this artist made for the project. And essentially, every time you vote on the pieces, one gets selected each week. It goes up to auction on Super Rare, and then that money goes back into the DAO treasury. And there's some tokenomics involved, so of the community tokens, but that essentially, they've created this whole community where they're basically we're all training this AI together, and then, all benefiting from the auctions as a community. So it's really cool, and I think that I really like a lot more of the interactive and cerebral projects that are exploring governance and, community participation. And, being a super rare artist has really given me a lot of exposure to these projects because, a lot of people, when they're trying to promote a project, will basically give perks to everyone who sold art on a certain platform, or everyone who holds a certain NFT. And similar to like what I was talking about with the access and experience. And it's being a part of Super Rares really exposed me to a lot of really interesting projects. And ultimately, I just love going through there with that pair of headphones because there's so many good audio visual pieces on there. So I really love doing that too. But and then also, an example further of the democratization of NFT platforms is that, Super Rare about a year ago basically created a token called Rare and gave that token to everyone who had ever bought or sold artwork on the platform. And that token, you can cash out for to your bank account, or you can hold on to it and utilize it for voting in their community to improve the platform and to, vote for various things that may come up in the community. And I just find that to be so profound because, and so when I say community owned or user owned, that's how in Web3 it's normally represented, is through a token. So similar to like Ethereum or Bitcoin, its own token. And Super Rare changed a lot of people's lives by doing that, for sure. And so, Rarible has their own token, and so on that first slide, I mentioned which platforms are community owned or user owned, which is what I mean by that. So What's your favorite NFT project? I'm asking you. I know it is hard. There's a lot of fantastic projects out there. Yeah. I also really like Decentraland wearables,
I was gonna say, honestly, crypto
crypto voxel wearables. Yeah. I think it's really fun, like NFTs and this is a great transition into the metaverse. It's so fun to dress up your avatar, and we've been having a lot of fun with that. And um, ultimately, as the NFTs, you just log in to say crypto voxels, which is what's on the screen here, or Decentraland, and your wearables will show up in your wallet, and then you can go and swap them out on your avatar. And a lot of this technology, ironically or unironically, I don't know, was created by Vitalik Buterin, who was an avid gamer. And so he was playing World of Warcraft when he was like 16. The game crashed and he had a full-blown meltdown because he lost, I think over a year's worth of his digital assets because they weren't actually stored anywhere where he truly owned them. And so he, had already been writing for Bitcoin Magazine and was already doing software development, but that experience was really what inspired him to really look at data ownership and assets and create tooling that really enabled these kinds of metaverses that ultimately are user owned, in the sense that you can own the land in the game, you can own the in-game assets, the wearables, and whereas other games, like, you're often just paying to play, and with the metaverse you're actually potentially able to monetize or at least own the value that you're creating. So the metaverse is a term to describe 3D virtual spaces and games that are accessible through the internet. So yes, most of these are in browser. In these worlds, you can meet people, go shopping, compete in games, create art, and more. Another way to look at the metaverse is a 3D website. Now people can display products for sale and host business meetings in a virtual environment where you can see, touch, and interact with objects and people, similar to how you would IRL. So on the right there is ETH Denver 2020. That was during the pandemic and our first big metaverse build we did. But behind this TV-headed statue is, I believe, like 142 artist artwork. We went pretty crazy that year and made this really cool virtual space that was a lot of fun. I think especially in the pandemic, it was a really cool way for us all to, like, we would have a Zoom set up where we were all hanging out and talking, but then we were running through crypto voxels and checking out the art and discussing it, and having Q&As with the artists virtually. And it was really nice to be able to still host an art auction and be able to still bring people together and support artists, even though we couldn't do anything in person. So I really think the pandemic catalyzed a lot of this technology and certainly got a lot of us interested in what was possible. But so what is the difference between a video game and the metaverse? So that's, a really common question. And then open versus closed. So, we talked about open versus closed NFT platforms, but, normally video games are built by a team of designers and programmers who create every step of the process, from the aesthetics and player controls to the storyline and goals. So players don't have any input into the game, how the game looks, or what happens in the game, right? So that's closed. So examples of this would be like Fortnite or Minecraft, right? Like you can do certain things in the games, but you don't own the assets. You can't change the storyline. You can't change the way the game works. So you're just kind of participating in what exists. And so a metaverse, however, is built by the players, where the worlds and buildings are designed by the community and the decisions made for its development are voted on by the players. And the oldest metaverse that exists is Decentraland. And so here at the top of this slide is some really cool Decentraland wearables. But they have a really robust DAO. And so the DAO is, it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, but essentially it's like the voting forum and where everyone discusses improvements for the platform. And it's just incredible because, it really is a worldwide distributed effort, and anybody can put in, apply for a grant to go and build a world, or you can just buy land and do it. But it's really cool because most of the metaverses, like Sandbox too, has a grants program. And so if you can't afford land, because sometimes it can get pretty pricey buying the actual metaverse land, but it's really incredible how much grant support is available. So you can apply for grants to buy land and then build out a game. And then all the resources are just open source. So like for us, for the last 6 months, we've built all these different spaces in Decentraland, and all of our files are up on GitHub to where, you could open them up, see how we made things, use them, modify them, learn from our docs. And we're one of hundreds of people that are really building and open sourcing their work. So it's a very vibrant and robust community of people that are out there, just freely sharing their education, or educational materials and repositories of files and all sorts of cool stuff, and then also ways to get funding to support your concept. So another great indicator if it's a real metaverse is if the assets earned in a game can hold value in a secondary market. An example would be character skins in video games can be purchased with cash, but can't be moved around to a different game or sold online once you're done with it, right? So just talking more about the assets in the game. So in a metaverse, these assets belong to you and can be resold or transferred to another individual. The metaverse utilizes NFTs to create a unique code or serial number of each piece. Whether it's a parcel or a wearable, its sales history and proof of ownership are available. This gives individuals control of what they want to do with their assets. So it's really powerful. And there's a number of games that are out there that are all Web3 based. So yeah, and I know it's a lot of jargon in the Web3 community. So we put together a keyword list here. Parcels are virtual property inside a world. Yeah, each parcel is a certain size, and ownership allows you to upload or build an architectural space within its boundaries. On many platforms, owning a parcel allows you to vote on community decision, also called governance. So yeah, like as you participate in these games, the more assets you have, like the wearables or parcels or names, you can buy names for your avatar, and all of those give you more voting power. So if, a friend of yours is trying to apply for a grant in one of these communities, you can go in and vote to support it. So wearables are the virtual outfits and fashion for your avatar. You can create your own persona by decorating your character with custom clothes and accessories. These assets can be minted and sold through the blockchain. And then governance is the community managed decision making and voting organized with Web3 systems. Blockchain and Web3 is the protocol system for decentralized finance and asset management. I feel like even the definitions of some of these words don't even help explain it. So just a lot of jargon, and I think it does get easier, and one thing that I really recommend for artists especially too that are interested in going down this rabbit hole is getting on Twitter. I had a Twitter, but I never used it until I got more into NFTs, because it's really, like, they call it crypto Twitter, and it's that's where the community is, because the community is so passionate about data ownership. Most people that are into crypto aren't really utilizing Facebook and Instagram, whereas Twitter is like, I guess, like, tolerable to data privacy enthusiasts. So a lot of people are on Twitter, huge communities. They have Twitter spaces all the time. And there's everyone in there is so high values with education and sharing resources and knowledge. And so I think it's a really great place to start, is like joining some Twitter spaces or going and just following the art platforms I mentioned, and then you'll start getting recommended to follow, the employees that work there, various artists, and soon enough you'll have this like dedicated feed to crypto art, NFTs, which I kind of liked that I never really used Twitter before, because now it's like my dedicated hub, where that's all, like when I go to Twitter, that's all I see. And it's nice because with like Instagram and Facebook, you're following all sorts of things. So it's kind of nice to have that dedicated social media channel. And it's just a great place to share your work and find community. So definitely would recommend that. And so with your wallet, that's your personal account where digital assets can be sent and held. Most metaverses accept MetaMask wallet, which can be shared to receive or send using your wallet address. So MetaMask again is kind of like PayPal for Web3. And so low poly or polygon refers to the complexity of the geometry for 3D objects in a game. So example, a 3D cube has 6 sides or 6 polys. Low poly has simple graphics, usually for optimization. So like Decentraland and Crypto Voxels are super low poly games. And so there's a lot of parameters when you're building in these worlds to keep things within the bounds of what'll look good and can basically be uploaded, because it's a giant metaverse being ran on a server, so you gotta like optimize your files and stuff. So your avatar is your customizable 3D character in a game. So here's some keywords. And so just going through some different metaverse platforms. Up on the top is Crypto Voxels, and on the bottom is a photo of Monaverse. Both of these are recreations of gallery shows we've done, and our actual brick and mortar space that I'm sitting in right now, which you can't see because I'm on a green screen, but we kept extending this concept of that we were exploring during the pandemic, because like our organization is literally called IRL. We're really passionate about IRL experiences. And so when we continued to build in different metaverses, we started creating replicas or renditions of our gallery, or the sports castle, which is where ETH Denver is held. We rebuilt Sonic Bloom, which is a Colorado-based music festival, and Far Out Murals, which is Yule's mural program down in southern Colorado. And the idea is that we wanted to promote accessibility. So, the crypto community is so diverse and all over the world. So there's, people that may, not even speak English, or not be able to travel, or they have a family, or a number of reasons that they couldn't come and experience what we're doing IRL. So we've been experimenting a lot with this concept of recreating what we're doing IRL in the metaverse, so anybody can come and have as close as possible to the actual experience. And it's also just an act of documentation, and we've been teaching ourselves a lot of gamification and just doing a lot of experimentation. And there's a lot of, again, grant support for learning these things. And I say often, Yule does too, of that, often it feels like we're getting paid to learn, and the Web3 community is all about that. And it's a very disruptive space in general. And so, if you are looking at, maybe continuing your education, or taking a year off from school to figure out what you're want to do, or can't afford school, a number of things, like there's so many educational resources available within the Web3 community, and actual ways to get paid to learn and engage through these different organizations. So I think it's really profound that people could get paid to learn, So Crypto Voxels is, the first metaverse we built in. It's probably the most easy. It's really similar to Minecraft, and it's really fun though. I always call it 3D MySpace. It's so much fun though, and you can pull it up on your phone too, or like iPad, and run around. But it's basically a world of galleries, and people hang their NFTs in there, their art, and it's just so much fun. And you can see on the map, where people are at, so you can go to places that are more populated and see other people and talk to them. So you can either turn on your audio or just chat with them. So it's really fun. And and so you don't have to learn modeling software to create in Crypto Voxels, which is really cool. A lot of them you have to build and then upload. So you're using software like Blender or Cinema 4D and, uploading into the world. But with Crypto Voxels, they have all the tools in game. So it's really pretty easy to just drop blocks and change their texture and, import an image, and it's all just right there within the game. And there's also, and on our docs on our website, on IRLart.com, on our Metaverse doc, we have all this information, and one section is about how to build for free in Crypto Voxels. They have a free way to build. So, almost every metaverse, you need to own a parcel to build, but Crypto Voxels made a way where you can build without needing a parcel. So that's all listed in that resource doc. And people can always reach out too if you're interested in these things. Feel free to reach out to IRLart on Twitter, Instagram. We also have a really cool Discord with probably close to 200 artists in it that are, all interested in these things and happy to talk with you and collaborate or point you in directions. So, and then on the bottom is Monaverse, which is considered a high poly program built using a custom Unity SDK. So Unity is a really incredible open source software that's free, and basically you build in there using Mona's like SDK, which is kind of like their own pipeline. And so with one of the largest available file sizes and free to build and upload. So Mona is catching traction for its high quality spaces that can be minted for free as NFTs. So that's one really cool thing about Mona too, is that you can, you build the scene and then you can actually mint it as an NFT. So, normally with the other metaverse spaces, you can't really do that. Some people will take pictures or videos and create content out of what they build in metaverses and sell that as an NFT. But Monaverse, what you build is fully transferable. And I just think that's really next level. They're just, the most high definition metaverse. And, one of our team members works with them as well, so we're big fans. They're awesome. All the people really that we've met as part of the metaverse are awesome though. So and then moving forward, Sandbox and Decentraland. So Sandbox is a voxel-built world for all ages. Sandbox is known for the largest volume of parcel sales. They raised a lot of money through their parcel sales, estimated to have earned $500,000 on parcel sales alone, with contributing celebrities like Snoop Dogg and Deadmau5. I think that number is actually a lot higher. It's 15 million. So I don't know why we have $500,000 on there, but they raised like $15 million through their parcels. Spaces are built in their own custom program and include avatars, games, collectibles, and more. So Sandbox also has a grant program. I think it's actually one of the only metaverses we haven't built in, which we might explore in the future, because we've built in CryptoVoxels, Mona, and Decentraland. So these are actual builds. The photos are builds that we've done, and but the Sandbox, that's just a generic image. So we got to build in there so we actually have a photo. But voxel built world so I already went over Sandbox. Decentraland is low poly world with interactive games and wearables. One of the first metaverses, it is the first Web3 metaverse. DCL is known for attracting large brands like Adidas, Samsung, and more. Creations are modeled in 3D software and uploaded using a Unity SDK. DCL, or Decentraland, is available on desktop and requires a graphics card for an optimum experience. So Decentraland, you can't get it on your phone. So that's kind of a downside. I know they're working on it, but it is a really robust game, so you need a pretty decent computer to run it. But it's so awesome, and the photo example that's there is a build that we did in there for Filecoin, which I won't get into. They're the second largest foundation in the Ethereum network. So and then these are some QR codes to each of the worlds. Definitely enjoy running around. Also, feel free to reach out to me. I have so many wearables for at least Decentraland and CryptoVoxels. So if you wanted to hit me up, I'd be so happy to send you some wearables so you could play around with them and see how they work. And we have So this is really just us flexing our intense nerdery, but basically on the left is crypto voxels, us rebuilding our space that we did Motion Gallery, which was a grant that we got through Unique One, which is a really cool, NFT platform ecosystem that also has provided grants to artists over the years. And so that was actually how we were able to open our gallery. And we hosted a series of, I think, like 6 shows in this space. And so every time we would change the show, we would change it in crypto voxels too, so our online community could come and see the shows. And in all of these spaces, so I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you can click on these NFTs and just link directly out to them. So it's a really functional way to display NFT art, and that's what I think like most people are especially doing in crypto voxels. And then on the right, just to show like the difference of quality too, is an image of our gallery in Mona space, in Mona Gallery. And so, it looks so realistic. It's so cool how high def it is. And so with crypto voxels, you're building in their in-game, but with Mona, you build with Unity. So there's just a lot more that you can do with that, and actually using, pretty full rendered 3D models. Okay. Sorry. So this is a really cool example of some clothing that we just released maybe a week ago. So we've been working on it for a while, but basically, we made these designs for this architect hoodie, and the graphic is the home screen of Blender, which is a free open source software that you can use to make 3D assets. But basically, we made the Decentraland wearable that comes with it. So when you buy the shirt or the hoodie, it comes with the Decentraland wearable. So your avatar and your real person can match. And we also integrated Kong chips into the jackets, which is really cool. It's like a blockchain verified NFC chip, and they're really interesting too. So there's a lot of use cases for these NFC chips. So all of our clothing comes with those, and then the wearable. So just another example. We're really passionate about like that intersection of physical to digital. We're a very community-oriented organization, and ultimately really interested to continue exploring like how to anchor technology into reality to benefit day-to-day lives. And so that's a lot of what you'll see in our work. And here's all of the resources that are on our website, and we're also always happy to, I'll scoot my head over so you can read it, and I'll Vanna White it. Got this weird hand at the bottom. But we've, and always happy if you see something that's not on here. We're always trying to keep this updated. There's all sorts of like grant resources, software resources, articles, links to the metaverses, to the NFT platforms, to all of the things. There's so much out there, and I find it really fun just to explore and learn and see what other people are doing. I think I give that advice a lot. Some artists are like, don't want to be inspired by others at all. They just want to, like, if anything, cut all of that out to focus more on their own thing. But I just personally find it really helpful to see what other people are doing, and on all the platforms you can look at, like on Super Rare, for instance, you can look at like the top selling artists for the last week, for the last month of all time, and filter and do all this cool stuff. You can go and look at the top collectors, and there's just so much, because Web3 is all about being super transparent, and so you can see what artists have earned and what the collectors have spent, what they all own. Like, you can go down these major rabbit holes and just learn so much that normally, that kind of sales data or that kind of tooling hasn't been available to artists. Another thing that I felt really kind of moved by with NFTs is that, traditionally the way that you appraise artwork is through that sales history from an auction like Christie's or Sotheby's or Phillips. But very often you don't, those auctions are reserved to just like a very few amount of artists, and so artists never had the ability to run their own auctions to get that sales data, to be able to appraise their work and to establish their own market. With NFT platforms, they've just completely opened all, like, the floodgates to all of that. And so, you can, and you also don't have to give a major percentage of your earnings to an auction house. So, most platforms, I think, keep, like a 2.5% fee, but it's so minimal. It's very small. Nothing compared to, an auction house that might keep like 30 to 50%. And so they've just, NFT platforms and the whole crypto art community is coming from a really empowered and empowering lens to really both resource artists with tools like running your own auction, or the built-in royalties and all of this transparent information about the collectors and what they're collecting, and so many resources out there. And so I've just found so much inspiration and just community in these spaces, and really think that we're still really early too. I think we're just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible, and I encourage people to get involved, and there's so many different ways to get involved, beyond just making art. And so that's kind of all I have. I still have quite a bit of time, about 45 minutes. If I X out of this, am I going to go into crazy, like, if I, like, can I, like, go to my computer? Okay. I just don't want it to get all weird. I was just going to maybe pull up some of these. Okay, cool. Perfect. So, yeah, unless there's any questions from anybody joining or anybody in the audience here. Do you have any questions? I know it's pretty dense, but it does get easier too. I think a lot of this stuff sounds foreign, but I feel like that's how most things are. There's a lot of jargon with most things, so don't get intimidated.
Could you give us some good examples of some NFT artists and kind of show us what it looks like to have a profile on an NFT page?
Yeah, sure. So this is Super Rare, which I really like Super Rare. I think it's just one of the most popular platforms that's seen the most success. I think, I love just seeing artists succeed, and especially such non-traditional artists such as digital and very experimental stuff. So, you know, you can look up, like I was saying, all time, you could look up top artists today, last 7 days, year. You can also do, the price in Ethereum. So, most platforms, that's what you'll be being paid in is Ethereum. But you can also look at it in USD, so you're not having to do like a math problem in your head to figure out what the dollar amount actually equates to. Xcopy is incredibly successful. I think I'll show Hackatow though, because I think for like multimedia artists or painters, this might be really inspiring. But check this out. He's made almost $7 million off of selling his artwork on Super Rare, and he has 135 artworks, and some of those must have been editions because he sold 190 of them. It says your highest sale, your average sale, so a lot of really cool data in here that you can go through. And I just love seeing like the successful artists on here and really checking them out and trying to understand. But Hackatow, what I think is really interesting about them is that these are illustrations and paintings, and then they basically scan it in, and then in maybe using After Effects or something like this, it might say if you click on the piece what software they're using. But can I finish? I'm trying to just say that they start from a painting or an illustration and then animate it and sell that as an NFT. But when you sell an NFT, you can still sell that painting. You can still sell prints of it. You can do, like, as the artist, you get to create those rules. And so I think for someone who, puts this amount of detail into a piece of artwork, it's just a really cool way to make the most out of it, so you're able to just both sell the painting and an NFT. So I think I like showing painters Hackatow just because I think that a lot of people can see this and be like, wow, this is accessible. Sam Stevens just joined us. Heck yes. Okay, we've got a question.
Yeah, could you show us your Super Rare page?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so if you look up IRLart, here I am, which, let's see. So I have, what does it say here? Does it say? Oh, yeah, so I've made 44 NFTs. Ironically, the last one I minted was Sam, who just walked in. And I could show you some of the cool things we've done. So this is a 3D artwork, so you can actually move it around with your mouse. It's a GLB file, which is often what you're using in metaverse spaces as well. So it's pretty cool how it's displayed on Super Rare. So this is like a 3D panoramic image of Ruby Creek. And yeah, and so I could find one of my pieces that has sold multiple times too and kind of show what that looks like. Let's see. So I have all sorts of stuff. Some of these are like collaborations with different artists and just a number of things I've done. But yeah, and then it says what the last sale price was. But what's interesting is, so 0.1 ETH right now is like $150, but when I actually sold it for 0.1 ETH, it was worth $24. So kind of, I find that to be somewhat of a weird feature, that it doesn't show the updated price, but it also shows how much Ethereum has grown in value too. So yeah, I was going to try to, I think this one is one that sold a couple times. So you can see the history. I minted it February 10th of 2020. I got an offer. I accepted the offer. And then this person bought the piece from that person. And then that person bought the piece. Then that person bought the piece. So every time this piece is sold, I've gotten 10% of those sales. And it adds up, and it's a really cool feeling once a piece sells. Again, just to get that instant royalty, because, it's a way to sustain an art career in a more meaningful way where, you can really see that upside of the value that you're creating, and not just be a one-off. So yeah, these are just different pieces I've made. I really like this one. This one's pretty cool. But yeah, and so it shows all the history, and then if you wanted to look at it on Etherscan, so this is the actual token on. And Etherscan is the way that you can track wallets and track tokens. So yeah, let's see if there's. But yeah, I think my very first piece I minted in. That's one really cool thing too, is it tells you. So January 14th of 2020. So. And yeah, it's crazy. I accepted $82 for it. It was half an ETH, but now half an ETH is worth like $750. It's actually pretty low right now, so it's kind of wild. But anyway, can you tell Sam we're recording? Or does it? Okay. Yeah, so just some of the other, this is the generative artist that I recommended checking out, Tyler Hobbs. This is his website. And then Botto that I was talking about. It's pretty conceptual, but people who I think are interested in the more philosophic and conceptual sides of Web3, I definitely recommend checking out Botto, which I would need to connect my wallet and do all that. But you can, they have all sorts of docs about their project and what they're doing, and a gallery of all the pieces that have sold and all of that. So definitely recommend checking those out. And so there's a projection mapping class coming up. I'm not sure if I know the details of it, so maybe if Leah wanted to come in and talk about that.
Sorry about that. I had to go out with the dog really quick.
I know, if you don't have time for that.
Pardon?
Hi, sorry.
Oh, all good.
What did I miss?
Oh, just if you wanted to say when the projection map, the information for the projection mapping class.
Yes, that one is going to be on Wednesday, September 28th. So the day before the festival starts. And I believe it's the same time at 4:30 to 7, I believe, a little bit longer. And that'll be taking place in Boulder at the Streetwise headquarters. So we'll get more information. We don't have it online yet, but we will get that up soon, and you can register and attend. We'll also live stream it like this again as well and record it.
Okay, great. And I'll ask if any of these guys have any more questions. Sam, do you have any questions while we're on, or?
Advice for people trying to like put in a proposal for this.
Advice for people wanting to put in a proposal for Decentraland. So, happy to talk about that. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. So, Decentraland was the, here I could actually just pull up on GitHub some of our projects we've done on here. So, I can show people as I'm talking about it. Let's see, Sports Castle. Trying to find Godfrey's. Here we go. So here's Sonic Bloom that we did, so people can kind of see what I'm talking about when I say, we recreated the festival in Decentraland. And so we applied for a grant back in December of last year, basically to support our work with ETH Denver was when we kicked it off. So we built the sports castle, but we were really interested to dig in on Decentraland because in addition to building worlds, you can build games, and that was something we were really interested in exploring more. And we basically looked into their grant process, and you can apply for different tiers up to $240,000. And so we decided to basically rebuild our next 6 months of projects in Decentraland. And the higher amount you ask for, the more votes you have to get. But, anybody who has land, who has wearables, names, or the Decentraland's token called Mana, can vote for your proposal. And we promoted heavily on Twitter. We got in there. We heavily promoted in their Discord. I joined a lot of different Discords that are in the Decentraland community, and just shared our project with them. And just different friends of mine that I knew had parcels or various things. Like if anybody watching this wants to put in a proposal, please reach out. Like, we would be happy to vote for it, and we would be happy to share it. And so it's a real community word of mouth type of deal. And it's not hard to get the lower grants passed. We were sweating it right at the end, wondering if we were going to get, I think it was 8 million votes we had to get. And we passed it though. I actually found people on LinkedIn that work for Decentraland, and we're messaging them about our project. And I thought it was kind of awkward, but it actually turned out great because they were like, "Oh, we've heard of you, and we're coming to ETH Denver, and we're so excited about this." And it was actually, I think that people get intimidated to reach out or don't know how to reach out. But if you're doing something cool, and people are often really excited that you're excited and want to find ways to support you. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to people and, look up on hashtags or, you know, exploring Decentraland's website, you can find a lot of creators, and even on OpenSea, the people who own a lot of land, and then they'll have their Discord and their bio, so you can add them as a friend on there. And there's all sorts of ways that you can reach out to people to promote your project. I just always, encourage you to be like, don't just share your project and ask to vote. Like, ask for feedback, or ask if like for us, we built in all of this these sub grants, and I think that was a big reason our grant got passed, was because so many people were like, I want to vote for this because I want to apply for one of the grants and participate in what y'all are doing. And they liked that we were actively supporting the community. So outreach though, for sure. And maybe starting with a smaller grant. Like, we definitely thought we were going to do a smaller grant, but then just decided to full send it. And we were really grateful. It was a really great experience. It was a lot of work. It was a lot more work than we anticipated, but we've all learned so much, and we met so many amazing people, and ultimately it's just such a cool community. And the fact that you can apply for grants and it's the community that's voting on it. It's not a board of directors, and you find out your decision within 2 weeks. So if it does get passed, it's pretty quickly that the funding, I think it takes then a month for it to actually, like, it vests. So it vests for a month before you actually get the first installment. But it is, I think, still relatively a quick way to get funding versus like more traditional grants. So yes.
So if they responded to this and say you wanted to start your project on January 1st, would you wait until the middle of December to put on the proposal, or could you still put it in advance and just say we're not starting until January?
So the question was, if you're wanting to do a project in the future, do you wait till you're doing the project? I think I would just go ahead and do it. So for the larger grants, they also vest over a 6-month period. And so smaller grants, you get them instantly, and then there's the second tier, and that's over 30 days, and then it's the highest amount vest over 6 months. And so, for us, we built our project around that 6-month period, but I think the sooner the better, because it does give you adequate time to, like, I wish we had have done our grant sooner versus the last minute, just because we had people working on things for about a month before we could actually compensate them. And so, thankfully we have a really great team of people that have been working together for years now, that had trust and knew that it was all going to work out. But, especially if you're trying to work with new people, or, I think it's good to just go ahead and get going on it, and it shouldn't be an issue if, you're actually going to do the project later, as long as you're, there's a report at the end that you do to show like how you spent the funding and the outcome of your projects and stuff. So as long as you do that part of it, I don't think it's any issue. So it's I find to be a very flexible community and very supportive. They put a lot of resources into their DAO coordinators that are there to help you with the process. And, several of them just came to Denver for a conference we had, and they're all really, really cool people and very easy to talk to. And and then we have so for our grant that we just finished really last month, we have a week from today our closing party, and we're really excited about it because we're flying out 4 artists from Portland who have started a Metaverse music label. So they have a really cool music venue in Decentraland called Cummunities, and they do live stream concerts all the time. And especially during the pandemic, we're bringing a lot of joy to people and are really cool musicians. So I wanted to, as part of the grant, to really showcase and support community members and give them an opportunity to come out to Denver and meet some other Metaverse community IRL and to perform. And then so we're going to have the performance at our gallery as well as live streaming it into Decentraland. So yeah, we're always open to, if, you know, we have this gallery space, and so if anybody listening to this is interested to host a pop-up or a gallery or a workshop or a number of things, like, we're a very community-driven space and always happy to help make it work on shoestring budgets and stuff. So we would be happy for you all to join us for our party, or if there's anything you need a space for, always let us know. And really, unless there's more questions, I might wrap up. Is there more questions? Sam, you got any burning questions? Tay, you got any questions about NFTs or the metaverse, or any knowledge you want to drop? Yeah?
Sorry, Kevin, kind of.
It's all good. You still get a B+ for class. Oh.
Just mention the projection, have your workshop in streetlight states.
Leah had the
I would just say.
projection mapping class, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm adding it to the website.
Okay,
Right.
cool. Heck
And
yeah.
I invite, so it should be up there.
Check the Streetwise website for all the info and goodies. And yeah, I don't know if I have anything else. Leah, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I so much information. I'm so grateful for you to be sharing that with everyone, and so generous with your information and your knowledge, and that's just awesome. And thanks so much for collaborating on this whole series with us. We really appreciate it, and Streetwise artists and community is super grateful to have these resources that you're sharing and access to these workshops. So just wanted to say thanks to the whole IRL team. You all are awesome.
Yeah, no problem.